Well, hi there guys, Bimble here again with a bit of a few little hints and tips I hope you might find useful, things that I've learned myself on my little journey. What I'm going to do is I'll make little clips of where I'm up to making a sheath for my current knife, and the sort of like things that I've picked up as I've gone along. This isn't to sit down and show you each step of making a sheath. I mean, there's tons and tons of videos out there. I might do something like that in the future, but it's certain things that I've picked up and have helped me, and things that probably because I'm so, relatively speaking, so new to trying to do what I'm doing, it's the sort of things I think of that other people might find useful. So that's what this is about, and I hope you do. So the first thing basically is always, like with any kind of work, get yourself comfortable. You can't work if you're not comfortable, and you've got plenty of room around yourself, plenty of room to put your stuff down, and wherever you need it, so you're not constantly hunting for things. As soon as I can, I'm hoping to set a little workstation up down in the spare room, and if I can get it set up before the most beloved turns up, then I might get away with it. Because the reality is, if you've got a spare hour and you spend 10 minutes getting your gear out, then 10 minutes putting your gear away, you're down to 40 minutes. You're losing a lot of time every single time you do that. So if you can have a bit of a small space, and you don't need a lot of space for leather making, you need some, but you don't need huge amounts. It really does help. So at the moment, because I'm where I am, I have my toolbox, which has got all my larger bits and pieces in. My tools are over there. I'll try and avoid the light, but decent lighting. As I said in the other video, you can't beat really good lighting, having plenty of light around you. This is my second go at this video. The first one, I learnt something new about videoing as well. Don't video when you've got the sun streaming through a window behind you, because it ruins the whole thing. So I went through everything, loaded it on YouTube and everything. It was just unwatchable. So bugger. So anyway, here we are for plan number 2. So hopefully this works okay. So yeah, so the first thing is, give yourself some room. I've got a decent piece of wood here. That's to protect the most beloved's table. Don't damage the table. You won't be invited back. On here, as you can see, what I've actually got is couple of the what I believe we call them anti-cut boards. They do cut, or work boards. I think the bottom one, the blue one, was called, it's like a crochet or quilt making. It was quilt making from a local haberdashery store, so a bit cheaper. To be honest, I bought those because I saw so many of the leather makers on YouTube using them, and I thought, well, there must be a reason. As soon as I got them and started to use them, I realised what it was. When you're doing any cutting, and if you're on wood, which is what I did before, if the edge of your blade catches on the timbers, it will run along the grain. So I was constantly getting, really struggled to get straight edges on things. I had to clamp my work and all sorts. Simply going to these, which are grain neutral, you don't have that problem. The knife will guide wherever you guide it. It will go wherever you guide it, sorry. So, they really do help getting a better finish on something. They're not 100% essential. They've only just got these in the last few months. But it really has helped, and again, like I say, a lot of the things I'm doing, I'm trying to get to be as good as I can be, and every little bit helps. So that's something I would say, if you can get yourself a good mat, get yourself a good mat. As for tools, starting out, I mean, I did it for years with just a drill, decent ruler for marking out the holes wherever you're going to put your holes, little pricker, cost me next to nothing, to actually prick the holes. I've drilled everything out. I've drilled everything out for years. Now I've gone on to pricking irons and trying to do everything by hand and tap all the holes through by hand and things. Thicker pieces I'll still drill, simply because you just cannot get the pricking irons through. Even on 3 layers of 3.5 mil, which is what I use for sheaths, you struggle, and I end up using the pricking awl to actually finish the hole off. But you don't have to buy an expensive set of pricking irons and things like that. There's nothing wrong with a ruler, something just to mark the holes. You can drill those out, little Dremel, little pillar drill, anything like that, and it looks good. One thing I would recommend you do get is something to put, something to basically, if you want, like gouge the leather, put a groove in the leather, and a groove for the stitching to sit in, which protects the stitching. This is the cheapest way of doing that. I've got the the fancy ones where you can set the distances and all that kind of stuff. Great, but again, this was something like it was a few dollars off of AliExpress or somewhere like that. Posted. It was it was really cheap. You don't have to be buying expensive things. That will do it. And again, you don't have a set guide, but it slides against the side of the ruler. Good straight edge. Cheap, nice and cheap. For cutting, I bought this a few months ago. It's one of the craft knives where you snap the blades off. Before that I'd always use Stanley knife blades. But what I found is that by having something like this, which is I bought this in a sale down at Bunnings. I think I paid $12 for it. It was down from $20 odd with a few sets of blades. Bought some cheap blades as well at the same time because they were in the sale. So it's a few cents to snap a tip off. The reason for that is what I've found is that if you're trying to cut a piece of leather and the blade gets blunt, what tends to happen is it tends to start to drag. So what you get is you get a curve in the leather. So it will start to curve down because the blade just drags through. If it's nice and sharp, it slides through much straighter edge. And being able to just snap a blade off means I'm not sharpening up Stanley knife blades. They're a lot more expensive. I'm not sharpening them, so a bit of an outlay initially on this saves me a lot of time, and in the long run quite a bit of money on Stanley knife blades. Or even the cheap copies, because the cheap copies again you go through a lot more, you're constantly sharpening them, and to be honest I don't have the time. So really good little, to me I found it really good, and you can keep it down, get around the edges. There's a lot of cutters out there and a lot of other things, and I'll probably invest in some other things as I go on. At the minute this is doing it for me. I have other things, like I've bought curved cutters for inside edges and things. You can get by them, just take your time, somewhere decent to get a decent place to work. Another thing I do is I would recommend buy decent leather. I think this is 3.5mm vegetable tanned hide, good quality hide, nice and clean, nice smooth on the back. Very important. If you get the cheaper leather, it's often very rough around the edges. If you do get any areas like that though, don't throw it away, don't waste it. I use it for practicing on things, for making things for myself or whatever that I wouldn't want to give to anybody else. So it can all be used. It's expensive. All your offcuts, keep your offcuts. I've got a little bag. Put on anything reasonable size. Then what you've got is you've got somewhere where you can practice cutting, practice your edges, lettering, anything else you want. And also when you are actually then if you're pricking through leather or anything like that, putting holes in anything, you can put that underneath it. Saves you mats, makes them last longer, protects everything. So keep your offcuts. You never know when they're going to come in handy for a bit of a welt or a bit of a edge or something like that. That's what I do. One thing I have, a little tip I've found is when you're making your sheath, you've got it all cut out. When you come to moulding it, dampen it a little. Makes it much easier to get it to mould right to the shape you want it. Don't soak it, just a little bit damp. And the most beloved is just arrived home. So that's what I do. I just damp it. It just lets me mould it into shape. So a little bit of a tip there. But whatever you do, don't soak it. But then you've got to remember you've got to leave it to dry. It might be a couple of days even before you put any products on it. Another tip I would say is don't start out by making anything big. I did a lot of practice making myself, and I've started this off again on making some belt loops. The reason is you can do all the techniques you need using all the finishing and everything else. That's on something small, so I started off by making about a dozen of these. I think I've got about 4 or 5 left. The rest of them were just absolute crap, but I got better and better and better to the point where this isn't a very good one, but it's for me. But it's good enough to keep, and then I got better as I went along. So, and also that way when you do ruin something, you're using a lot less leather, so it's a lot cheaper to have a bit of a practice at that way. So that's basically some of that, just enough to get you going, sort of things like that. I'll bring you back when I'm a bit further on and show you some of the little tips I've picked up. But for now I'll be signing off, and I'll catch you guys later.